Welcome to another broadcast of We're All Here Together. This is a blank paper broadcast, which means that I don't have a topic. I asked a little before I sat down, or while I was sitting down, where to go and what to cover, and I ain't got shit. So I'm open to anything that the crowd shows up with, or I'll just start rolling with something. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Hi. Okay, I guess, let's see, where should we start? Guilt was the first thing that I heard. Guilt is such a trippy thing. There's an element of it. So 2 weeks ago, last week I was off broadcast to allow for my own process. And let me talk a little bit about what that looks like. So I think this probably happens for all of us in different ways at different times. I am seemingly hyper attuned to the process, probably through my own asking, and then just like kind of how I'm built. And then now it's been like years of practice. And so often we go through these periods of change, and they look like or feel like confusion or turmoil. And sometimes that experience is we associate it with external things, and sometimes it just kind of like hits you like an inner wave. And I can kind of watch, it's almost like a slow motion shift, and here it's like this belief like comes down, and then like I watch another belief go in its place. And sometimes I don't see that part. I just wake up to the new belief being there, and the belief is kind of like a lens through which you see the world, see life, and when you see stuff different, it looks different. And then what makes sense for you, or what makes sense in general, changes. And that process used to be very unsettling to me, because it looks like, sounds like, sometimes even does require a lot of change. So if you think that something is important and you built your life around that idea, and then there's a shift and you find that you no longer feel like that's important, all the structures, everything you built out around that would then have to move if you wanted to be true to growth. And it seems like, on some levels we can be resistant to that process, and that then kind of suppresses our energy and or creates a lot of inner friction, or you don't feel as alive or enthusiastic. You might be depressed or anxious or whatever, and it's generally because you're kind of trying to hold something into place artificially. And that could be something like a relationship, like I was talking about, or it could be an idea about the relationship. And so we'll freak out, like it doesn't really matter if it's real loss or just like the loss of the idea of what it was. For example, if you associate a relationship with part of your identity, I'm important because I play this role, you might be hesitant to allow that belief to evolve, because your identity will be at stake, and then, oh my God, who's gonna love you? Will you be good enough to be on earth, etc.? And so you'll kind of like double down on your efforts to assert your importance through that vehicle, and trying to like block out this growth potential. I am like the queen. I am the queen. As soon as like growth knocks on the door, I'm like, I'm busy. And I am getting better at remembering that process is for the better. I generally feel better after I have been updated or changed in those ways. But we all have our own growth opportunities, and mine just happens to be around accepting and welcoming growth. And again, like I have enough data at this point to recognize and appreciate that while I'm afraid of what would exist beyond that point, that it's generally better than what was before, and to allow myself to kind of let go and dance with it. So last week, I was going through a change period, and for me, that process is very physical. I can kind of like actually feel it in my my body and my mind or my brain, and it's a little exhausting, and it sometimes is challenging for me to speak from that place because it's moving around a lot. And I do talk about it. I do talk from there on my other channel, which is very helpful to me in processing it. And I think I'm trending towards opening the lab doors over here because thus far I've kind of like showed up to this channel and said, like, here are my findings, like, here are the notes. I explored the territory, like, these are the parts you're going to want to stay away from. These are the parts you're going to want to check out. And, like, don't forget your main point, which is to enjoy yourself. But to do that, I am engaged in this ongoing, like, process of evolution that I witness and practice speaking to. It's real crazy. It can be real crazy. So I haven't opened the doors the whole way. I don't have as much filter. I don't have as much control over who sees what over here. And why I would want control is in some ways like to know that that there's a big enough context built out around the share for someone to really understand what I'm saying, and but if that's how I'm called, that's how I'm called. We'll see. So today is a We're All Here Together broadcast, and I came in and I was talking initially about guilt, and then I just turned off a little bit to speak to my own process and growth and change, and kind of the way, good morning, hey, kind of how I witness that process and what it turns out to be, what it's like. And it does seem like I've been blessed to have friends, the intergalactic hotline. I've been blessed to have friends across the world who are attuned to similar things, and it does seem that there is kind of like a collective rhythm to some of these growth changes, like you, girl, where we will be processing or experiencing belief changes around the same time, around the same topics in our own ways through our own lives, which is kind of mind-blowing, right? And that's how I've kind of think or feel that consciousness sort of grows on its edges or in these waves, and some of us are sort of organized on the same band, and so we get the update, we do the work, it progresses. And I want to emphasize, mostly for myself at this point, that that process does not need to suck. It does not need to suck. One of the core beliefs that I had was around, struggle and effort and suffering and all of these. Yeah. Oh, look. The comment was, I need to respect myself again. What's so cool about first being able to appreciate that that's where you are is great. And then if you can respect that you don't respect yourself right now, as in this is the season, it's almost a backdoor into allowing some of those feelings to start to grow again. So by respecting that you're in a place where you don't respect yourself, you're respecting yourself. And so then the gap between you and the state that you want to develop is it's gone. And it does seem or sound sometimes like that won't be enough, but I've been out here for a minute and I would try it. Thank you. Where was I running? I was saying about growth or change across the group's consciousness. Yeah, I mean, there is, this illusion of separation where we have kind of our little idea of being a human, and we're separate from all the other humans because we can see that their body is separate from ours. And yet it does seem like we all exist in the same sort of field, and just like cells in the body are separate but not really separate, so seemingly are humans. And I know the illustrations really help take the points home, so let's pause. Thanks. Yeah. And I think that's important because that does in some ways, for me anyhow, shift personal responsibility and the expectations I put on myself as an individual, because I can't necessarily opt out of this field that I exist in. I mean, I seem to have some leadership as to how I interact with it, the relationship that I have, also how I'm focusing and where, how I'm focusing, why I'm focusing, etc. Like, this is my instrument. I get to choose how I play my instrument. Am I choosing to play notes that are beautiful in harmony with what is? And just like I was saying in response to the comment earlier, it's not necessarily playing the sound of respect, but really playing the sound of acceptance. That to me is harmony, where you put your mind in alignment with what is. Often, and I've been in behavior change for a while, we have someone who shows up and they're like, I want to do this, I should be doing this. And it could be something tangible like a fitness habit, or it could be something mental like stand up, be kinder to myself, heal something, etc. And then they have where they are, and they try to move where they are to this idea, this is where I will feel relief, this is where I'll be good enough. But it's actually the other way around. If you allow your mind to be with what is in a way that you validate it, then your energy sort of aligns with it. You stop fighting yourself, and then you can go forward. You can make progress. And it's just, you only need to do it for a couple areas, a couple ways to see like, oh shit, this works. Because I guess, I don't know, maybe this is true for me too. I was just afraid that if I surrender to what is, that I just like set up shop there and be like, well, but it does seem like, let's see, for the example, for the fitness habit, rather than waking up every day and thinking like, I should, but I didn't, or yesterday I didn't, but you can be really hard on yourself, and then you build up all this emotion around the activity, and it seems almost insurmountable. But if instead you noticed you didn't work out yesterday, you could say something like, well, that's okay. Don't give excuses, don't give explanations, no words, real simple, that's okay phrase, period. That's okay, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. And then start to ask questions like, well, where was I a little more active? I did climb up the steps an extra time today, or I stood up, and you start to shift at an identity level to saying like, oh, I am exercising. You claim exercise as a part of your expression, and then from there it's a lot easier to build on that rather than trying to shift the state of like, I'm not. And I've done that personally for a lot of my stuff, and it has been, I've healed a lot of stuff. I have like a shit list of things I showed up with. I showed up with a habit and belief level that were self-destructive or not that helpful or kind to others on all levels and all ways. And it worked for me. I might share my shit list again. But, okay, so guilt. Oh, actually, that does lead back to the original topic that came to me. So guilt is a phenomenon. It's always the word that comes to me, where it's kind of like in its true essence, like what it really is supposed to do is very small. It's just kind of like that pinch to be like, what the fuck you do? And then you allow yourself to see it. And then that's it. That should be it, just the pinch, But we, like, as humans, for some reason, think that being in self-punishment or holding ourselves in this state of guilt will correct or, like, atone for what the error was. But ironically, putting ourselves in pain like that detracts our presence, our attention away from the present, because we're, like, worried about what we look, or how we're coming across, are we good enough, etc. And so you continue the pattern of doing dumb shit because you're not really there with it, you're there with your guilt. So guilt is so funny. If you look at, again, what's the main point? Well, the main point is to help you be a better human, right? And if you have so much guilt that you shrink and you aren't able to express and love fully and really show up, are you accomplishing your goals? Like, how about this? Today, if you're somebody who has guilt, write guilt on a piece of paper. Let me do it right now. Write it on your piece of paper and then put that shit down. Intend really strongly, like, I'm gonna put this down, because in truth, like, if you feel that you've had it, you likely have already reviewed your actions. You have an idea what you could do better, and carrying this around basically preoccupies this hand. And so what are you not doing with this hand? The best that you can. So today, just put your guilt down. If you need to write more about it, you can. If you need to apologize to somebody, you can. But in truth, the presence of that in your mental, emotional space is counterproductive to what you would hope it would be or do. Throw it in the Oh, good. Thanks for the commentary. It's great. Okay. Well, that's it for today's broadcast. These are posted on youtube.com/@Shaylee-Edwards. I also have, I've been trying to push my vision, and this is another thing I'm coming to speak to more confidently and often, is a nicer world for everyone. And I think that that's possible through just some self-love, really. If people are able to love themselves, you show up differently, you take responsibility differently, you communicate differently. Like, the new world is possible, and there will be a we're all starting different places, and that's okay. Conversation, sometimes what you need to offer somebody outside of you, where that's the best they can do right now. Does that mean that you need to play in their sandbox? Fuck no. Does that mean it serves you to judge them or that they're wrong as they are? Fuck no. There is room for all of us to sort of evolve, and that's really, from my vantage point, the only choice. So I really am hopeful that in the future, people will be able to make decisions that are correct for themselves, sustainable, etc., in a way that we can kind of weave a different fabric, a society fabric that is nice for everyone. Because some of us, we do have varying degrees of skills, contributions, etc., but we are one people, one body, just like I was saying. And so I think that is my vision. So when I'm out here sharing information, it is really in support of that. And I do work with clients one-to-one. You can check that out at habitbook.com. There's a ton of reviews on the client reviews tab. You can book a free info call. There are several of the links there. And with clients, I'm generally doing kind of work like this, where it's like, hey, where do you have ideas that aren't real? What if, hey, oh wait, let's look at how they're not real. And then it's like, oh shit, look, you can put it down, now you free. And as part of that process, we start to reveal the true self, and that feeling of being connected to your unique, your individuality, not who you learned to be, not who you had to be to survive, not how blah 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 blah, who you truly are. It's so nice. It's so nice to be with you. Clarification you provides me the ability to realign myself. Thank you. All right, everybody, have a beautiful day. Thanks so much for coming out. I'll likely be out a few times this week.